off a daily fantasy. His number too high, then I'm probably fading him. He been on the road, he gon' eat up my salary. I hit a buy, he gon' lie before lock. Play back to back, then I probably won't pick on the DFS bachelor good as it gets. Build a few liners and hit me a leg. He had a good game, but it might be a trick. Log in the Slack so I know who to pick. Sharing our lineups, we all gon' get rich. New to this game, you should come to the pad. You might want some cash and get a good laugh. DFS sports, we gon' run up a bag. He heard every game and it's making me mad. You buying your lineups, I think you a cheater. DFS bachelor, he the new leader. Yeah.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bachelor Pad. I, of course, am your host of DFS Bachelor, and as usual, when we cover League of Legends, it's best for us that we bring in our League of Legends Supermind, coach, player, all that above. At League of Items, Mike, how you doing this morning, brother?
Doing well.
Good.
Woke up at 5. I've been waking up at 5 every day to watch everything and put together that video. The esports center stuff I've been doing. So after the first game when FPX lost, I was pretty tilted. I thought
Me too.
I thought it was going to kill me in all my contests, but the ownership was like so heavy on FPX that it didn't even really matter.
Yeah.
So I got back most of my money in like the 20 entry max and stuff like that. But then I won a ticket because it was like the $64 qualifier, and everybody had FPX plus Top Esports and Rogue Warriors. So literally 0 people rostered an LNG player.
Wow.
Isn't
Yeah,
that
well,
crazy?
it's actually, it is crazy. And speaking of that, it's actually a pretty special day for the Bachelor Pad. One of our original members, Jordan, was one of the 4 people to chop in that $15 for
Nice.
9,000. That's because you hear us talk about, I've said this a million times in these 2-game slates, even if you don't think they're going to win, it makes no sense not to hedge with an underdog lineup. We have 4, you can make 4 lineups and have a combination of you're going to have the winning combination in one of those lineups in terms of the teams that win. Now, if your roster ends up chopping at the top, that's another story, but you put yourself in a position where you will, so it always behooves you to do that. So a big shout out to Jordan. Congratulations. Way to be smart. You know, no one thought LNG is going to win, but that's the reason why you play him in DFS, because you just never fucking know what's going to happen. So I think that's really, really cool. So big shout out to him. That was pretty neat to see. I was tilted until I saw that. I was so pissed about FPX. I ended up breaking even. I think I was up $4 or something stupid. But then I saw that and I was untilted.
Yeah,
so it was pretty neat.
I was pretty tilted. I was pretty tilted from the fact on my video yesterday. I said like maybe I'll make one lineup with LNG, but it's basically lighting money on fire.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. And then like I knew that in order to get Knight as your captain, you needed to have either a game stack or LNG players. Yeah. So I mean, you didn't even have to think that they were going to win and that had a chance to be the best lineup. You know,
right. And it was.
They just had to outscore Rogue Warriors.
And Knight is the man. I know we disagree, but Knight is my boy. I love Knight. He's my like Top Esports is my favorite team. I love Jackie Love and Knight, both of them. So it was a unique thing yesterday, and I don't know, pretty cool. I was glad to see it. As usual, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate that. Why don't we do a contest? $25 PayPal giveaway. Leave a comment in the comment section. We'll pick a random comment next Monday. This weekend, I have one more graduation weekend to do. So I'll be gone during the weekend, but I'm going to try to be here all week for the rest of these. Sorry, I know it's just been a busy few days. I've got all these damn graduations, and for some reason, these kids love their Uncle Kyle, man. They love me, and so
inconsiderate.
So you know, they love me.
You've got shit to do.
They're terrible judges of character, you know. I know. So we'll be back, and I'm gonna try this week to do a WNBA preview video with Dion. Dion and I used to do those together, so. Might do something like that. So all sorts of stuff. And of course, sportsbook review. When we get back to that, football season starts. I'll be there every day. Mike's writing articles over there. All sorts of stuff. So be sure to check all that stuff out as well. Appreciate the subscribe, the like, the comment. That's all you got to do. Leave a comment. We'll announce the winner Monday.
Well, I have a suggestion for that, actually, if you don't mind.
Sure. I'd love that.
So for the comment, I'm sure most of you have probably seen one of the Esports Center videos.
Love them.
It's basically just a highlight. It's highlights of the games from the day before, and I say some ridiculous stuff. And in one of my last videos, I said, if you have any suggestions, like make a YouTube comment or something, and I'll try to sneak it into the video. So the comment that you leave on DFS Bachelor's video or one of my videos, just say something that you would want to see in Esports Center, and
Okay.
I'll try to incorporate the winning lineup or the winning line into the video.
There we go. So leave a comment what you want to see. You can find a link to that channel and all that stuff down in the video description below, as well as our Twitter handles, the starting lineups. I've already tweeted out the starters already that they've been announced. I usually do it again.
Oh yeah, I need to retweet that.
I do it again like around 10:30 my time at night, about 2-3 hours before it starts, just to kind of refresh everyone's mind.
Sure.
So you can find all that in the video description below. So 2-game slate. I think this is a tougher one. I think these are 2 tough games. You could make a reasonable case for all 4 teams winning tonight. Our first game is Vici Gaming versus RNG. RNG looked really, both of these teams looked really good in their first summer split game. During the spring, they did play back on March 20th. Vici Gaming won that one 2-0. Just kind of surprising. I do think RNG is the better team. There was no odds. I couldn't find any odds right now on Bovada, but in terms of Draftkings pricing, they have JDG and RNG as the favorites.
Yep.
What do you think? Vici Gaming, RNG, what do you think about it right now?
Okay, so I have a line from Odds Portal.
Okay.
I think they're like an aggregation site where they take a bunch of lines from around the industry and like blend it together. So they have it at minus 150. RNG as the favorite. Vici Gaming's plus 112. That's about 60 to 45%. So RNG 65% favorites, or 60% favorites. Vici Gaming 45% dogs. So the VIG is included in that.
I think that's about right.
Yeah. So I agree that RNG is the better team. I think that Cube and New are relatively similar. Those should be the 2 starters tonight based off of what we see on Twitter. XLB and Aches are relatively similar. Wow. I think XLB is slightly better, and he plays more of the champions that I like to see for DraftKings, and for just winning chances in general. I think Xiaohu is a much better mid laner than Forge. During the offseason, RNG picked up Cryan from eStar, and some people were speculating that Cryan would start playing, but Xiaohu is an extremely good mid laner, and like taking over that spot is going to be close to impossible. So I don't know how they plan on using substitutes. I guess technically it is a sub risk if they want to just try out Cryan in one of these games. But I expect them to take this matchup pretty seriously because the teams are relatively close, even though I prefer the RNG side. Sure. In the bot lane, Betty and iBoy, I think that the league community in general thinks that iBoy is the better player because he was considered a carry on like all of his teams, because there's a difference between people who play the bot lane position and a true AD carry. Like right. That's like saying you have a point guard it's like saying this person plays point guard, but there are different kinds of point guards. You could have like Steve Nash, who is like the quintessential point guard, and then you have somebody else like James Harden, who is technically a point guard, but he's really like a score first kind of guy.
Well, Russell Westbrook's who I'd put there. That's kind of how I'd put that one.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, just stylistically very different. iBoy is more of the traditional AD carry. Betty has shown flashes where he's been extremely good though as well.
Yeah, he has.
I think the recent retirement of Uzi, if anything, is a benefit for Betty, because now he doesn't have to worry about like Uzi coming back and taking his spot. So he has a little bit of that pressure off of him, and he can kind of just play and focus on himself and try to improve and get better. And then both supports are fine. They're both league average or better, so there's no huge talent discrepancy there.
Right. I
like the RNG side for meta reasons, and I think that I think Vici Gaming is blue.
They're and blue side, yeah.
Yeah, typically blue side is an advantage, but I was thinking about this a little more in depth based off of this meta, and I don't know what the like historical data would say, but for teams that play carry junglers, I think it might actually be a benefit to be on red side, because the other team needs to spend bans eliminating champions that you typically wouldn't expect, because traditionally the blue side can target ban enemy players, and the red side has to eliminate as many of the strong champions from the game as possible, because like they don't want the other team to first pick it and they don't have a chance to like respond. Um, but when you have a bunch of carry junglers in this meta, you can't ban them all out. And if you do ban them out, then you're basically going into a like 5v5 traditional team fighting kind of game where the other team gets the top two of the top three picks for that style of game. So specifically for RNG, I think that is kind of a benefit because they would also have the option to counter pick mid lane. So you can't always depend on teams to do the right things in the draft. But I think based off of how RNG has been pick banning recently, I think it might actually be an advantage for them to be on red side.
Nice. I like it. And as usual, I'm going to have exposure to both sides of this. Just kind of like what I was explaining, I can do it visually with the arrow. So if you play, let's say you play $20 a night, instead of playing two $10 contests or one $15 and one $5, play 4, 5, $4 ones. You can pair, you can do a 3-4 or a 4-3 stack with Vici Gaming and JDG. Then you can go Vici Gaming Sunning. Then you can go RNG Sunning, RNG JDG. And if you're a tournament player, you're guaranteeing yourself at least one of those combinations will have the two winning teams. And if you pick it right, you could win a lot of money, especially if it's one of the underdog lineups, which I think, you know, the upside's always going to be there for the underdog lineups because you're going to be able to play two AD carries. You're going to be able to play two mid laners if you want. If you're playing both favorites, if you're making an RNG JDG lineup tonight, you're not going to be able to fit two AD carries or two mid laners in your lineup. You're going to have a top or a jungler or a support as your captain, which limits the overall upside. So it's just a strategy to play, and, you know, we see it every single night. And if it's an underdog lineup, you're going to have less people chopping with you, and that's when you get the big $9,000 or $10,000 wins splitting it because you only have 4 people chopping with you. So, you know, scared money doesn't make money. Spread yourself out, keep your overall budget. You never want to spend more than you can lose, but maybe League of Legends is not a single entry type of game. It's not a one lineup type of game.
Yeah, you need to have like some kind of really fringe outcome.
You do. You have to. Now, once we get to 4 or 5 or 6 games, you can start to see some real heavy favorites as the season goes on. You can, you know, maybe differentiate by going 3-2-2s or whatever and picking, you know, winning teams from there. But in these 2-game slates, if you're not hedging each combination, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion, especially if you're playing tournaments.
Yeah, I've been playing the 20 entry max and not hedging at all. I've just been treating it like a parlay. So like if I go into one slate, a lot of the time I'd rather have 20 combinations of like the parlay that I think is going to hit, just because in that contest everybody's limited to 20 entries. So you don't have these guys pumping in 150 lineups with a bunch of different combinations. Yeah. And the top prize is like chopped. It's still chopped often, but you have a better chance at getting a solo first place in that contest. Sure. Because like when you think about it, the 150 lineups that they have available to them, if you're assuming they're picking only 20 of those 150 lineups, like everyone's going to approach that a little bit differently. You have some people like Kyle who are going to hedge, some people like myself who are not going to hedge, and then you have other people who are just pumping in like quote unquote optimal lineups from like projection sites.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's probably the best tournament on DraftKings right now, because you can max out the entries, be basically even with the field in terms of like the biggest players that are putting money into those, instead of having to go like 20 lineups versus 150 or 10 versus 150.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great contest.
Absolutely. And, you know, I made the mistake. I had no inclination at all that LNG would have any shot against FPX, and I never, ever don't hedge. And last night I didn't, and I fucking lost. And it's biting me in the ass, and I regret it. So
yeah. The one thing I'd say about the FPX matchup is I wouldn't get too caught up in the fact that LNG won, because I think if we're being honest with ourselves, it's always like the craziest scenario. Even if it's 99% to 1%, this was in the range of outcomes. So like if somebody wants to debate me about like, you know, it was really like an 85 to 15 matchup or something like that, like that's fine. Like you can make that bet if you want to. It's just that's not really how I I go about things.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say that most people are going to miss is that FPX, even though they lost and gave up a lot of kills, they played relatively well because, in my opinion, the correct way to play League of Legends is once you're down 2,000 to 3,000 gold and your implied win percentage or your chances of winning the game decreases below 50%, you need to start taking disadvantageous fights, hoping that you can outplay the enemy team or that you catch them off guard in order to get back in the game.
Sure.
And FPX did that like 5 times in game 2 and 5 times in game 3. And that's why the game like exploded so hard, is because they were continuously forcing the issue. And that's what you need to have from a great team, because that means they're never out of a game.
Right. Makes a ton of sense. Our second game, I think this is a very interesting game. Your favorite team, JDG, taking on Sunning.
Yeah, JDG. Bunch of bandwagon losers.
Here we go. Yeah. Mike hates you. If you're a JDG fan, you're not going to enjoy the commentary during this segment.
Yeah, you go first then.
So they did play back in the spring, March 30th, for what that's worth. JDG beat Sunning 2-1. We've seen Sunning look pretty good so far. And they were looking pretty good at the end of last year too. Their DFS DraftKings players love Sunning, and for good reason. They're an aggressive team, high scoring. JDG is also very similar. JDG is, of course, the favorite. Like I said, I'm going to have exposure to both sides. I think this is a 2-1 game. I don't think that either one of these teams blows the other team out. But I like Sunning quite a bit. I don't have a huge issue playing Sunning tonight, and I think they're priced way down. So if they do win, you're going to have that upside, and the idea of having Juan Fang and then Betty or Iboy in my lineup getting 280 carries, it's quite enticing. Now JDG is one of the best teams, we know that. They can put up a ton of points as well. So having both sides of this matchup just makes sense to me.
Yeah, so I don't know if you had a line for this one or not, but right now it's minus 475 JDG. Holy plus shit. 320 Sunning.
Oh,
I know.
Give me that bet on Sunning all day long. Then
I know.
It's not even close.
That's what I said. I think that that the match bet is pretty good for Sunning, but I also think betting map 1 and map 2 are also good ideas. I need to find. Let me actually find those right now. So just if you could go through the pricing.
No problem. So at the top, Zoom and Bin, they're the only two. Obviously, Zoom is one of the best top laners in the world. That's where I'd give the advantage in the top lane. Soph M is the starter, not View. Again, those are on our Twitter page against Kanavi. We all know Kanavi is also one of the best junglers in the world. So you almost give them the advantage there. But I do think in the mid lane and the bot lane is where you start to see things even out. And that's where Sunning likes to play. They're an aggressive team. Yagao versus Angel, I like them both. Just in terms of DraftKings reasoning, JDG did allow the fewest fantasy points to opposing mid laners, while Sunning was allowed the third most. In terms of the bot lane, Sunning allowed the second most fantasy points to 80 carries, while JDG was also first. So you can kind of see a trend here and that has a lot to do with how many games they won, but JDG was number 1 in every single category in terms of allowing fantasy points to each position. They allowed the fewest fantasy points at each position. So I do think that does tell you a little bit something. But again, Sunning played them tough on March 30th. It was 2-1. We've seen anything can happen. We've seen V5 already win twice this split. We saw LNG beat FPX last night after getting the shit beat out of them by RNG just the other day. So, anything can happen. That's why I'm going to have exposure to all 4 sides. But I do like Sunning as an underdog, and I like their pricing.
Right. Yeah, so on the sports book, it is map 1 plus 254, map 2 plus 254, map 3 plus 214. That's weird that it would go down in the third match, but I guess that's their way of saying, like, if they win one of the first 2 games, their chances of winning the third game does increase slightly, but they still think that they're the underdog. Yeah. The money line for the match is plus 350. So if you think that Sunning wins 1 out of 3 matches, you should definitely consider putting in or 1 out of 3 games
in the match.
1 out of 3 games You
That's
should
just a
definitely
crazy
look
line.
for
I
it.
can't believe that. I cannot. So they're just having JDG blow them out 2-0, which could happen. It's not like it's out of the realm of possibility, but
Sure. Yeah.
I like Sunning to win at least one game.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on in this matchup. So before the season started, in my preview, I said that I think Sunning has a chance to actually win the split because they have a play style that is typically incentivized towards the end of the season, when it gets close to like Worlds time, because like Riot Games, the people who make League of Legends, want the game to be a little bit more predictable at Worlds Championship, so that like you can have these extremely high upside plays, these extremely close games between like international teams, and just very explosive with like 80 carries playing really well because they're one of the more mechanically gifted players on every team.
Right.
And then today they announced that there's going to be nerfs to mid lane, so they're thinking about fundamentally changing the mid lane role to like uh, take away some of the experience, take away some of the gold, and just tweak the game a little bit, and that would have another impact on the bot lane of them being a little bit stronger. But when we look at JDG specifically, I agree that Zoom and Kanavi are two of the better players. I I've been saying two of the best players in the world because that's like the public consensus, and they're definitely very good.
Right.
But I don't. I think that they do have an advantage in the top lane. In the jungle, I think it's surprisingly close because in their last match, we saw that S of M can play Graves really well, and Graves is the most important champion in the game right now, in my opinion.
SFM, that's
And
funny. I call him Sophom. Now it
yeah,
makes
I don't
sense.
know I don't know which one it is, but
No,
I
it's
think
SFM. He's starting.
yeah,
He's starting.
yeah. So Sunning is blue. Sunning is blue. Blue
Yep.
side, and this is a spot where since we have two carry junglers, um, if you're forcing JDG to ban out carry junglers, then that's good for Sunning because they want a more front to back team fight kind of game. But if they have to play carry junglers, we know that they can now.
Right.
So I think that you're right about Angel and Yagao. I think they're pretty close. I think there is an advantage in the bot lane for Sunning though,
Yeah, me
and
too.
yeah, the last thing that I would say about JDG is that I was comparing them to a team like in the NFL that has a very high turnover differential. So in a lot of their games last year, they were in winning positions, would throw away their lead and then get the lead back. That's a very unlikely thing to happen in a game.
Right.
So I think they were on the right side of variance last split, and I think that they're going to regress just in general. I still think they're a very good team. I still think that they'll be competitive for the championship, but a team like Sunning matches up pretty well with JDG because they can play that traditional front to back team fight style a little bit better than I think JDG can.
Right.
So I love Sunning here. I think that most people will be able to convince themselves that Vici Gaming has a very good shot against RNG and that JDG is just going to beat up on Sunning. But I would probably just play the opposite way because I do like RNG a lot. I think Xiaohu's underrated, Betty's underrated, and then I think that Sunning overall is very underrated as well.
Right, me too.
So yeah, I do like the Sunning side a lot. And just to be clear, like I know some people that are watching these videos don't really understand the difference between trying to predict the outcome of something and trying to give a probabilistic forecast of what's going to happen.
Right.
So when I say that I like Sunning, compared to their like 30-something% implied win rate, let me get that number again. Whatever that number is, there's a huge edge on that side because I think that this matchup is closer to 60-40. In the worst case scenario, it's closer to 60-40. Maybe it's even closer. And that just gives me even more incentive to bet on Sunning. So I love them tonight. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm sure that if they lose or if they get quote unquote destroyed, people are gonna like make fun of me in the comments or on Twitter or something like that. But these are the kinds of spots, especially early in the season, where you need to be on the underdog because there's a lot that we know about these teams, but there's a ton that we don't know about these teams as well.
Right. I completely agree. I agree with all of that. If we want to rank our ownerships, I would probably say that JDG would be the highest owned team tonight, most likely.
Yeah.
Which then means you'll probably see Vici Gaming second, RNG third, Sunning fourth, some sort of combination like that. So I really like the RNG Sunning stack for tonight. And I think that if that ends up being the optimal lineup, you'll see a lot less chopping than you will with the other combination.
Yep. I agree. I think that's how it'll go. I think Vici Gaming and RNG are going to be very close in
Yeah.
terms of
Sure.
their ownership, but I would probably I would think that Vici Gaming will probably be a little bit higher than RNG, because typically what we've been seeing on the 2 game slates from the ownership is that the biggest favorite is typically the highest owned because they have the best
Exactly.
chance of winning, and then you have the underdog 80 carry is extremely highly owned
Right.
relative to the rest of their teammates,
Right.
and then you have it kind of normalize after that.
Which is proper lineup construction. That's exactly what people should be doing. But don't forget
Yeah.
to have the other side of it,
Yeah,
because that's where you're going to have the most upside in terms of profit and return on investment.
yeah, but also the thing is, I think it is still like overvaluing the 80 carry position, because you have mid lane and jungle both have chances of being the highest scoring player on their team, and if you get a match where both mid laners or both junglers like outperform the 80 carry, then that's the only way that you're going to be able to win a contest, is by having them as your captain.
Right.
So I always try to get exposure to different kinds of captains
Mm-hmm.
based on who I think is going to win the match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at tonight.
Yeah, me too.
RNG stunning.
Me too. So again, don't forget, $25 PayPal giveaway on Monday. All you have to do is leave a comment in the comment section below in this video or in Mike's Esports Center video. You can find a link to that, commenting about what you would like to see in there. I think that's a perfect way to do it, and it kind of gravitates to do. Again, appreciate you all so much. Big thanks to Mike again for being here with us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Twitter. Starting lineups are already out. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Nope.
All right, then. May the fantasy gods be with you all. We'll see you tomorrow. I'll be around for tomorrow's LPL.
Fantasy gods aren't real. Sunning's gonna win.
Sunning's gonna win. I love that plus 325. That's just ridiculous. Thank you all again so much. Goodbye, folks.